Hello everyone, this is Barbara Howard and welcome to my podcast. Today is February the 17th, 2021, and this is episode number 7. So it is still Black History Month here in the United States, and I had the awesome opportunity to participate in the Jackson Book Festival on this past Saturday. So I want to give a great big thank you and shout out to Meredith McGee, who headed up that effort. And it was virtual because I'm in Ohio and they are in Jackson, Mississippi. I got to virtually meet a lot of really interesting authors and poets and young people. This Salut, if you're listening, I want to say hello, and it was so nice to meet you. A young man, I think he's 15 years old. He published a book about insects. He wants to he thinks he wants to be an entomologist. He's interested in black soldier flies, and guess what? So am I. It was so cool to talk about bugs with him, and I got to read a little bit from my children's book, A Day for the Animals, and like I said, I just want to say thank you to them. So this was something that I wasn't expecting, and I want to mention this because maybe this has happened to you. When you're reading about history or even watching movies about it or learning about it in school, you tend to have a regional perspective. I'll put it that way. I'm in the North. I have traveled to the South in the United States, but I've never dwelled there. I have some distant family members there, but I really don't know them. Didn't grow up knowing them or anything like that. Not close at all. So when I listen to the ladies and gentlemen talking about Black history, social justice, civil rights, freedom fighters, freedom riders, different events with the Klan, this one who was arrested and put in federal prison versus state prison, and different things and trials that happened, and the legal aspects of these different protests and things that have gone on throughout the history of the United States, in particular for equal justice and equal rights. I heard it from a local perspective. These are people who, this is their local history. Their families are intermingled. They interact with them. They go to the same schools, or they work at the same prisons, or they know the same judges. And it had a different, I don't know how to explain it. It gave me insights that I would not have had any other way if I had not connected with these wonderful people in Jackson, Mississippi. Of course, there was Jim Crow here in the North. There was segregation here in the North, discrimination, protests, and so forth. It happened here in my local elementary school. Different things. There were riots here in my hometown. But when I read about something on a page versus when I talk to people where this is their living history, where their family members have experienced this, and this is generational knowledge that has been passed down from decade to decade to decade, it gave me a tremendous amount of a perspective that I would not have had otherwise. So I'm grateful for that opportunity, and I made a mental note to seek out more opportunities like that, to talk with people who live in the area, the city, the region where events have happened, and get their historical perspective. So that was my homework that I walked away with today, or this past weekend. If you want to check out the Facebook Live, you can go to the Jackson Book Festival Facebook page, and the replay is there on their page. Again, thank you, Meredith McGee, and everyone there. I believe the Learning Tree Book Club and the community library there. Wonderful people. All right, so weekend before last, I was talking with the the American Literacy Corporation, and the young man said, "You are Black History. Remember that?" I mentioned it on my last podcast. Well, I shared a story with him during my time on that event in that Zoom, and I want to share it with you because, again, people have asked me about my previous career. So I'll share this one. It's one of my favorite stories, actually. I was a program manager, which meant I was the lead on a multi-million-dollar contract for a little over a decade. And I had team staff in different locations, primarily focused in Arlington, Virginia, the Pentagon, and the Capitol Hill, the Senate, and so forth. So whenever someone wants to talk to a representative of the contractor, that would have been me. So I got pulled and yanked around a lot in that building. It's a very big building with very hard floors, and I was roaming around in these high heels looking cute and sassy, and it was tiring, but it was exciting. So I would get a little sticky note saying, go to this room. Sometimes they would tell me why. Most of the time they would not. There would be at least a full bird colonel. Usually it would be a select executive, it would a chief or deputy chief. It would be a secretary or assistant secretary or a general of some type, because they don't come to you, you go to them, and it's always immediate top priority. So I would wander into the office where we reported to the contracting officer representative, and I would be handed a sticky note saying, "You need to go to this room. They need to see you." And off I would go. It was a running joke that I carried a turkey sandwich in my pocket because I never got a lunch break. I was always going here and there because, once again, everyone was important and everyone had priority. So this one day I got a little sticky note telling me to report to this room, and I jumped up and I went. Again, not necessarily knowing what I was going to talk about, just knowing that I had been summoned. And I knew from the room number that it was an important person just because of the location of the prime real estate of that particular office. And when I opened the door, the reception area was only had two ladies behind these huge desks. And the reception area was the size of, actually bigger than my studio apartment that I had at the time, because it was very expensive to live over there. So I knew that, this person was going to be incredibly high ranking, in an Army uniform, a one-star general. I didn't know what he wanted to know. I just knew that it had to do with a particular system that had just been installed and so forth. So off to one side was an office for his executive officer, and the XO came out and, told me, it'll be a few minutes. General so-and-so wants to know about XYZ. And I said, okay. And I said, is it installed on his laptop? Yes, it is. That's fine. So I had the information was actually in his office. He just needed someone to explain it to him. And that's why I was there. So we waited a little bit, and then the XO called me over to the door. He's, about to introduce me. He opens the office door for the general's office, and as I walked past him, he leaned over and whispered under his breath and said, "No matter what happens, just keep talking." And I glanced back at him as I walked through the door, and I thought, well, that's interesting. That was an interesting thing to say. Well, I walk in, and here is this radiant smile of this African American one-star general. I did not know who he was. I had not heard of him. I didn't know anything about this office. And he sat down at his laptop, and he had this program open, and I recognized what he wanted to do. He had very tough questions. We started to work through some of the things that he was interested in knowing about it, what it could do, what it couldn't do, what kind of information he could pull from it, and so forth and so on. And then suddenly, his chin dropped into his chest, and he was totally knocked out. I was young. I didn't know what was happening. The little people in my head were saying, oh my God, this man is dead. Because of course he's an older gentleman, and I'm thinking, did he have a heart attack? I don't know what's happening here. But I know that the XO told me, no matter what happens, just keep talking. So I did. I turned the manual pages to the next page. I clicked on the page down buttons and the function key buttons and all the other things that make the things happen. And I kept talking as if he was listening to me. And then I would ask him questions. Of course, he wasn't answering me. And I would then turn to the next page. Do you have any other questions, sir? All right. So now we're on this page and we're doing this as if he was listening to me, and he was not listening to me. As far as I could tell, he was totally out cold. Eventually, it felt like hours, but I think it was like 5 to 10 minutes, I think, actual time. He came to. He looked up at the screen and he started rattling off all of these tough questions. He was right back with me. He was right in step with what I was saying. And this went on for a little, maybe 20 minutes to about 30 minutes. We wrapped it up. And he had to take a phone call and I had to leave, because when the phone rings, you step out. you step out smartly. And so I did that. And when I stepped back out, the executive officer was leading me out to the door, and he said, in the past, what has happened, this officer suffered from narcolepsy. So he would just fall asleep, just randomly drop off into sleep and then come back and come to. And apparently there was a major who came in to brief him on something, and made some remarks when he thought the general was, not listening. And they were, we'll just say, career-ending remarks, okay? And because I survived, I became a favorite. And he spoke very highly of me behind closed doors. And I was his quote-unquote teacher. Of course, he did not need a teacher because the man was brilliant, but I would get called from time to time to go up and brief him on different things. And it was an honor and a lifetime relationship from that point on. While I say that, but, while he was assigned to that office, and typically they rotate in and out, but it seemed like a lifetime to me because I just treasured that. And so that was my Black History moment, I guess I could say, in that office. And can you tell I'm smiling thinking about it? It's one of my favorite memories. So what does that got to do with my writing? I'll tell you what. No matter what happens, just keep talking. I thought about that because the American Literacy Corporation is making a bulk order of my children's book, A Day with the Animals. And the reason why it's significant is because I wrote that book back in 2008. And I just recently, as in the last couple of months, decided to dust it off, give it a fresh new cover, put it in audiobook format, and put it out there to see if anybody was interested in it. And boom, here it is. So no matter what, just keep believing that the work that you're putting out there, the stories that you're creating, the journaling that you're doing, it all does matter. Eventually, you're going to see it come to fruition, and someone somewhere is going to appreciate it. So with that, I'm going to end today's podcast. Remind you that my website is at barbarahowardmedia.com. If you go over there, you can find my books. You click on the picture and it'll show you where you can buy them. And also any events that I'm going to participate in, that'll be listed there as well. Follow me on all the socials. The buttons are over there on my website at barbarahowardmedia.com. Love you guys. Take care. I'll talk to you again real soon.